If you're making six figures, but you're still having financial tension with your partner, especially over small purchases, it's not actually about the money. See, most couples try to solve this by budgeting harder, spending less, taking financial courses, or just avoiding the conversation altogether just to keep the peace. In this video, I'll break down why these small purchases keep turning into full-blown arguments, no matter how much you earn, and how to fix the root problem without more tension, shutdown, or blame games, so that way you can actually get out of debt and start saving more. For context, my name is Johnny Mendoza, and I help six-figure couples pay off their debt, saved $1,000 to $4,000 more per month without every money conversation turning into a fight. So let's go ahead and walk through why small purchases turn into fights, even in six-figure households. So first off, we actually want to address what the real problem is here. And there's four things typically. The first thing is you can't talk about money without it turning into a war zone, or you just avoid the conversations altogether. If you can't actually communicate and have the conversations in a peaceful manner, you're not going to make progress no matter how many budgeting apps you download. The next thing is you're working hard towards something, but you're not working hard towards the same future. Maybe one of you wants to save or is saving, and the other one is just spending. If you don't have an aligned vision of what you want for your future, then you're not going to get anywhere either. Next up is you have unset expectations about who handles the finances and how you should be spending your money. If you haven't actually talked about it and defined who does what's your roles inside of your financial operating system, it's no wonder you're going to be fighting all the time. Then lastly is you don't have a shared system to stay on the same page financially. A lot of times the money conversations come up when you're fighting about them or something's bothering you, rather than having a set rhythm where you guys check in with each other to stay aligned with your goals, your vision, and make sure that you're both doing what you said you were going to be doing. Here's how to stop small purchases from becoming big fights, and 3 shifts that can change everything for you. First shift that you want to focus on is actually creating safety before you start talking about strategy. So if you can't talk about money without it becoming a fight, you're not going to get anywhere anyway. So what you want to do is separate, creating emotional safety, a safe space where you can both talk and be heard without the fighting before you actually move into the strategy and decide what you're going to work on and how you're going to do it. So I'm going to talk about emotional safety and define it for you. Now, at the end of the day, you're going to want to figure out what emotional safety means for you and for your partner by having these conversations and figuring out what the issue is that's coming up. Generally speaking, there's 2 different ways that we can look at this. One is feeling heard, even if you disagree with each other, without being dismissed, emotionally judged, or shut down. You just want to be in a place where you can say what you want to say how you feel, and it be heard and supported rather than just completely ignored. The other thing is knowing that the conversation is going to stay productive, respectful, and then focused, right? You want to go into these conversations about money knowing that you're going to have specific things that you talk about and also some sort of specific outcome that you're working towards. And then lastly, success in talking about money and getting aligned with your vision, your goals really comes from these conversational foundations where you can talk to each other without everything turning into a fight, without blame games. And so that way you can both get your points across. Here's some ideas on how you can set up these conversations to where you can talk to each other and just be heard. So that way, when you move into the financial strategy portion of things, you're both on the same page and feel comfortable. First, you can ask, can I just check in with you about our finances in a non-stressful way? This is going to be followed up with not to fix things, but just to feel more connected. So that way it's said that you're having this conversation just to be connected. The fixing things is going to happen later. Same thing with the next one. You can let your partner know that you've been carrying some weight and you want to talk about it. So you can just say, I've been carrying some stress quietly around money. Can we talk about it for 5 minutes? Can we talk about it soon? Can we talk about it in the near future? Can we do a short check-in this week about our finances? And then same thing, no matter how you set it up, you just want to let them know that this conversation is not to necessarily fix things, but just to feel more connected. So this works because it's going to lower defenses. You're not trying to fix things right now. You're not trying to put the responsibility on anybody, just trying to open up that emotional safety and emotionally safe space to have these conversations. And you're just ultimately opening the door for you to connect again. This is going to separate the vulnerability of how somebody might be feeling around finances from the productivity of fixing things and getting in alignment. So the second shift that you want to focus on is actually agreeing on goals, defining your roles. So most couples don't have an actual vision for their future. So it's no wonder that one person is spending incongruently with how the other person might be feeling or believing that things should be spent. So what you want to do here is actually get aligned on building for your future together. Are you saving up to buy a house? Are you saving up to buy cars? Do you want to retire early? Do you want to fund your kids? Whatever it is, you want to get aligned on what you're working towards together. And then you want to define who does what in a way that feels fair for both of you. Is it that you're both in the game, you're both operating on the finances together, you're both making money, you're both saving money? Or is it that one of you is the quarterback carrying the team and then the other person is the cheerleader who's there to support the quarterback to the best of their ability? So you want to define who's doing what and what your roles are in this. And then by the end of these conversations, you should have an idea of what you're working towards together and who owns what. So that way it's the conversation that you directly had that you both agree on. And if you disagree on things, then you can hash it out from there. Here's some tactical moves you can make so that way you work on defining those goals that you want and defining the roles and who does what. So first thing you want to do is establish your short-term and long-term financial goals together. And then you want to write them out, make them concrete. These may change over time. It may change over weeks, months, years, whatever it is. But at least you have written down your vision as a couple. The next thing is you want to do a micro money task audit. So for each task that's happening, whether that be creating your budget, tracking your expenses, paying the bills, managing investments, setting goals, whatever it is, you want to know who's doing this now. And then also ask, is this working for both of us? And the one I'll bring up is actually the budget. Because if one of you is spending incongruent with the budgets that you have set out for each other, maybe that's an area where you can discuss and make some changes. And then this works because even if you loosely agree on goals and roles, it's going to reduce a lot of the confusion and it's going to lighten the emotional load. So this is really bringing up those unsaid expectations and then communicating with each other so that way you can work towards a common goal. The last shift here is actually creating a rhythm, building a rhythm for your life, and not necessarily following a rule book. So most couples, they're only talking about finances once it's actually a problem and they're frustrated about something. But what we want to do is stay ahead of this by having these conversations regularly. So that way it's not just around a tense moment. So you can do this by establishing a regular cadence for you to talk about your finances. Maybe at first, if you guys aren't on the same page a lot right now, you might have to talk about it more often. It could be every week for a while, and then maybe every month, and then maybe every quarter, once you have everything down. Now, this is what I like to call the money dates. They're going to help you course correct and stay on track when things aren't going well. So maybe you're 3 months in and you both decide like, hey, this isn't the goal that we want to work towards, or maybe something came up. You guys can, in a regular rhythm, make those changes as needed. Or if one of you wants to work towards this goal, but one of you isn't necessarily doing what is in alignment with hitting that goal, you can help nudge each other into the right direction and help remind each other what those goals are. And then this is also going to help you establish that you're making progress in your relationship with your finances and not necessarily seeking perfection. Because if you're checking with each other regularly, you'll know that you're both actively in this together, working on it, and that you're not necessarily adhering to that rule book to where one person's going to get in trouble if they don't follow the exact rules. So here's a tactical move that you can do with Shift 3, and that's by starting weekly money date lights. So this is just 15 minutes where you start to talk about your financial situation and work on hammering things out. So the first thing that you can do is just ask each other, what are we doing right now? What's working? What's stressing us out? And then what do we want to adjust this week? So you don't actually want to have this all in one conversation. These can be 3 separate conversations, or you can go through all of these each week until you get a rhythm and something that works for you. Ultimately, this is more about having these conversations regularly rather than figuring out the details the first time that you talk about it. So this works because you're starting to talk about the problems before they escalate into fights. And then over time, this is something that you can both look forward to, right? It's called a money date for a reason. You know, dates are something that you probably both like, and money is probably something that at least one of you likes. So if you combine them together, you can make this more of an experience rather than just an accounting session with your spouse. So once you make all 3 of those shifts, here's what real alignment actually looks like. First is having conversations without resentment. So you can finally talk to your partner about money without shutdown, spirals, or silence, everything turning into a war zone. You can just have calm and clear conversations and move things forward. Then you start becoming one dream on one team. You have a vision, you have your goals that you want to hit, and then you evenly divided the roles in a way that you both agree on. So that way it's not just everything's falling back on one partner. And then last part is you can actually live the plan together. You're not just winging it anymore. You've got a rhythm, that shared plan, and then weekly money dates that actually work for you so you can stay ahead of fights and move forward and make progress as a couple together. So these aren't just ideas, they're the foundation of the Line Money Method. It's a system that we use to help couples align their money, values, and future without losing each other in the process. You see, you don't need another budgeting tool. You need a system to align your money and your values in a way that doesn't create more tension. So that way you can actually get out of debt and start saving money towards your future together. So if you want a communication first financial system that helps you pay off debt, save $1,000 to $4,000 or more per month, and finally talk about money in a way that fits both your personalities and keeps the peace without more budgeting boot camps, spreadsheets, or apps that don't actually solve the root problem, then go down below and watch this free training I created. It'll walk you through exactly how you can create real financial alignment with your partner without losing connection or making it feel transactional. And if it makes sense, you can book a free alignment call with me or someone from my team.